Hello and welcome to Cloud and Proud, Azure Technical Series with me, Daniel Baker. Cloud and Proud is a series of workshop sessions designed to help you understand Azure and prepare you for certification success through a series of business case studies that focus on using key aspects of the Microsoft Cloud. We will work together and together we will build business solutions using a variety of tools. If you have any questions or feedback during the sessions, then please feel free to reach out to me because I'm always happy to hear from you. So let's set the context of this session. Contoso is a small manufacturing company that wishes to link its on-premises Active Directory service to the cloud. They've asked you to discuss the various options available as well as design a proof of concept that will allow them to evaluate some of the benefits of moving to a hybrid model. You will navigate the options available within the portal. We will set up synchronization with the AD Connect tool, and we will investigate single sign-on and MFA capabilities. Finally, we will look at some of the advanced reporting functions available in the cloud and how they can be used to monitor resources. Let's get started. Azure Active Directory is a comprehensive multi-tenant identity and access management solution that provides a robust set of capabilities to manage users and groups. For IT admins, Azure AD provides an affordable, easy-to-use solution that gives employees and business partners single sign-on access to thousands of cloud-based SaaS applications like Office 365, Salesforce, Dropbox, and Concur. For application developers, Azure Active Directory lets you focus on building your application by making it fast and simple to integrate with a world-class identity management solution used by millions of organizations around the world. On top of this, Azure AD includes a full suite of identity management capabilities, including multi-factor authentication, device registration, self-service password management, self-service group management, privileged account management, role-based access control, application usage monitoring, rich auditing, and finally security monitoring and alerting. These capabilities can help secure cloud-based applications, streamline IT processes, as well as cut costs and help ensure that corporate compliance goals are met. Additionally, with just 4 clicks, Azure AD can be integrated with an existing Windows Server Active Directory, giving organizations the ability to leverage their existing on-premise identity investments and manage access to cloud-based SaaS applications. Organizations use Azure AD to improve employee productivity, streamline IT processes, improve security, and cut costs. Let's look at some of the key benefits. Now, Azure Active Directory allows an organization to quickly adopt cloud services that are fully integrated with existing on-premises directories to provide both employees and partners with an easy, single sign-on experience to corporate resources. It allows you to easily and securely manage employee and vendor access from wherever they need on the devices that they love to use with advanced authentication tools such as Azure AD multi-factor authentication and conditional access. What's more, it allows you to implement consistent self-service access management policies, empowering business owners to move quickly while cutting IT costs and overhead. Finally, it allows you to monitor application usage and protect your businesses from advanced threats with security reporting and advanced monitoring capabilities. Over the coming slides, we will look at some of these benefits in more detail. Before we do that, let's take a look at the different Azure AD editions and discuss some of the workload capabilities offered with each. Now, Azure Active Directory is a comprehensive, highly available identity and access management cloud solution that combines core directory services, advanced identity governance, and application access management on top of a rich, standard-based platform that enables developers to deliver access control to their applications based on centralized policies and rules. With the free edition, you can manage users and groups, synchronize with on-premises directories, and get single sign-on access across Azure, Office 365, on top of thousands of popular SaaS-based applications. On top of this, you can add paid capabilities using the Azure Active Directory Basic, Premium P1, and Premium P2 tiers. Azure Active Directory paid editions are built on top of your existing free directory, providing enterprise-class capabilities spanning self-service, enhanced monitoring, security reporting, multi-factor authentication, and secure access for your mobile workforce. Azure Active Directory Basic is designed for task workers with cloud-first needs and provides cloud-centric application access and self-service identity management solutions. You'll get a productivity-enhancing and cost-reducing features like group-based access management, self-service password reset, and the Azure Active Directory application proxy to publish on-premises web applications, all backed by an enterprise-level SLA of 99.9% uptime. Moving to a premium P1 tier offers support for more demanding identity and access management needs. This tier adds feature-rich enterprise-level identity management capabilities and enables hybrid users to seamlessly access on-premises and cloud capabilities. It includes everything you need for information worker and identity administrators in hybrid environments across application access, self-service identity, and access management, as well as identity protection and security in the cloud. It supports advanced administration and delegation resources like dynamic groups and self-service group management, and includes Microsoft's Identity Manager and on-premises identity and access management suite. What's more, it provides cloud write-back capabilities, enabling solutions like self-service password reset for your on-premise users. The final tier, Azure Active Directory Premium P2, is designed with advanced protection for all of your users and administrators. This new offering includes all of the capabilities in Azure AD Premium P1, as well as our new identity protection and privileged identity management. Azure Active Directory Identity Protection leverages billions of signals to provide risk-based conditional access to your applications and critical company data. We also help you manage and protect privilege accounts with the Azure Active Directory Privileged Identity Management so you can discover, restrict, and monitor administrators and their access to resources and provide just-in-time access when needed. Let's take a quick look at Azure Active Directory in the portal. Okay, so let's jump into our portal. Now, again, got a brand new clean subscription here. If I go ahead and click on more services and we come down under security identity, you're going to see that Active Directory in Azure is a huge product and there's loads of areas that you can access it. So if I come down, you can see, look, I've got Azure Active Directory, which is what we're going to look at a moment, but we've also got Azure Active Directory Business to Consumer, which we will talk about later in this session. We've got multi-factor authentication, users and groups, enterprise applications, app registrations. On top of this, we've got Azure Active Directory Connection Health and Cloud App Discovery. We've got privileged identity management, identity protection, and this is on top of information protection and Active Directory rights management, or RMS. What we're going to do is we're going to have a look at Azure Active Directory. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the star and we'll pin this to my left-hand column. Then from there, let's click on Azure Active Directory. And you can see that it's changed focus into a new blade. Now, if we look at the overview, we can get a quick glimpse of my users and groups. You can see at the moment, I just have an account for myself in there. Under the quick task, we can add a user, add a group. We can also find our users and groups as well as apps. We can look at user sign-ins under our enterprise applications. We can set up Active Directory connection with an on-premises directory. On top of this, we can set up self-service password reset. We can set up company brandings, as well as other capabilities discussed before, things like identity protection, privileged identity management, and cloud app discovery. Now, if I come down under quick start, you'll notice that I have some videos and some documentation that I can begin reading. If I look under users and groups, this will then change focus into my directory users. And again, you can see that I've got one user in there. So if I come down under all users, you can see that Daniel Baker Live and Daniel Baker at danielbaker.info is in there. But if I want to go ahead and add a new user in, I can come up to add. And then from there, I can give the user a name. So I'm going to go ahead and say Simon Pearson. And then for the username, I'm going to call this Simon at danielbaker.info. Under his profile, I'm going to go ahead and enter the details. So Simon Pearson. He is a Microsoft TSP and he works in SMS and P. So there we go. We've entered the details for Simon. If I come down into the properties, you can see the source of authority, and at the moment it's Azure Active Directory. I can choose to add into groups if need be, so I can go in there and search and select any groups that I want him to be a member of. And then under directory role, I can go in there and choose if he's a user, if he's a global administrator, or if he's a limited administrator. Now, again, later on in this session, we will come back and we'll investigate some of these roles in more detail. So from there, I'm going to exit out of that blade. If I come down to password, you can see that it's a predefined password. Now I can choose to show that password and copy that password if need be. But obviously the first time Simon logs in, what will happen is he will be prompted to change that. Okay, so from there, I could then go ahead and create. I'm going to choose not to create at this time. And we're going to come down and look at our groups. Now, if I come down into all groups, you can see that there's nothing in there, but I can go ahead and click on add. And then from here, I could go ahead and say, I don't know, web admins. Okay, these are going to be the web administrators. And then the membership type, again, I can say, is it assigned? Is it a dynamic device? Is it a dynamic user? Again, we'll come back and we'll discuss these in more details later on in this session. From here, I can set up password reset. So I can go in and choose my self-service password reset if it's enabled. It's enabled for nobody. I could do it for a particular group, or I could do it for everybody. I can choose my authentication methods and the number of methods required to reset. At the moment, it's defaulted to email and mobile phone, but you can see I could put in office phone or security questions too. I could choose about registration, and do I require users to register when signing in, and the number of days they have as grace period. I can choose notifications on password resets, and I can also go in there and set up customized help desk links and URLs. If we come down to company branding, you can see that I can go in and I can set up a customized front end for my users when they authenticate into my services. If I come down into user settings, I can choose a number of options. Can we allow apps to access user data? Can users add gallery apps to the access panel, as well as app registration and access for external users? From there, I can come down to activity and look at sign-ins as well as audit logs. So I can come down and I can look at any audit logs that have been set up. Now, as we navigate down, you can see that I can set up enterprise applications. I can look at app registrations. I can then set up AD Connect, which is what we're going to look at in a moment. I can configure my own domain name. So at the moment, you can see that I've got Daniel Baker info on Microsoft.com, and I've gone ahead and registered danielbaker.info as a domain name in there too. Click on password reset, takes me back to the portal that we just looked at, as will company branding, as will user settings and properties. Activity we looked at for sign-ins and audit logs. So all that's left on this pane that we haven't looked at is security. Now under security, what it's going to show me is any users that are potentially at risk and any risky sign-in. So what it's going to do is it's going to look for anything that doesn't look quite right and flag that up for investigation. Traditional identity and access management solutions provide single sign-on to the on-premises applications and directories. These solutions are perfect for the on-premises world, but as we've discussed, there are new pressing requirements to provide the same experience to cloud applications hosted in any public cloud. Azure Active Directory can be the solution to this new challenge by extending the reach of your on-premises identities to the cloud in secure and efficient ways via a simple connection that links the directories together. Integrating your on-premises directories with Azure AD makes your users more productive by providing a common identity framework for accessing both cloud and on-premises resources. Users and organizations can take advantage of the following. Firstly, they can use a single identity to access on-premises applications and cloud services such as Office 365. Administrators can utilize a single tool to provide an easy deployment experience for synchronization and sign-in. And finally, with new tools to enable integration, such as Azure AD Connect, it's never been easier to link the directories together. Azure Active Directory Connect is made up of three primary components. The synchronization services that are responsible for creating users, groups, and other objects, as well as being responsible for making sure identity information for your on-premises users and groups are consistent in the cloud. Next, we have the optional Active Directory Federation Services component that can be used to configure a hybrid environment using an on-premises ADFS infrastructure and address complex deployments such as domain join single sign-on, enforcement of AD sign-in policy, and smart card multi-factor authentication. Finally, the monitoring component, Azure AD Connect Health, provides robust monitoring and central location in the Azure portal to view activity. Azure AD Connect comes with a default configuration that's intended to work for most customers and topologies. However, there are several features that can optionally be configured, such as filtering, which is used when you want to limit which objects are synchronized to Azure AD, password synchronization and write-back. On top of this, we have device write-back, which allows devices registered in Azure AD to be written back to on-premises directories so they can be used for conditional access. Next, we have accidental delete prevention that will protect your cloud directory from numerous deletes at the same time. And finally, we have automatic upgrades to ensure that our Connect is always up to date with the latest release. So let's now jump into a demo and set up directory synchronization with AD Connect. Okay, so we're going to jump into a Server 2016 domain controller. So let's go into our Server Manager. And under Tools, I'm going to go ahead and go into my Active Directory users and computers. Now, this is a domain controller that's been configured on the danielbaker.info domain. One of the other things I've done as well is I've already downloaded the Azure AD connector to save time. Now, if you're following along on the video, all you need to do in order to achieve this is under Azure Active Directory, you're going to come down to the Azure AD Connect tool, and then from there you're just going to click on the download link and that will download onto your system. The other thing that I've done while we're here is under users and groups, I've created a new user called AD admin, okay, and I've created some users in my directory. So we've got an AD local admin, then we've got Alex, we've got Ian, Laura, and we've got Simon. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and sync these two directories up. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to click on Azure AD Connect, and that's going to launch the wizard. Okay, and then from there, we're going to run this installation tool on the server where the synchronization service component will be installed. So I'm going to go ahead and agree to that. And we're going to use Express Settings. Now, the reason we're using Express Settings is because we've got a single Windows Server Active Directory forest, a single directory. We want the password synchronization, and we want to enable things like automatic upgrade. Now, if I wanted to go in and customize this, and I might want to do that if I had multiple forests or multiple directories, I can go ahead and click on the Customize tab at the bottom here. But we're going to stick with Express Settings. Now, what it wants to do now is it wants us to connect into our Azure AD. So it wants that administrative account that we've previously created. So I'm going to call this AD admin at danielbaker.info. And we'll go ahead and put the password in. So okay, that's fine. So from there, it's going to see if that account's okay and it can reach it, which it can. Then what it wants is my local directory. So I'm going to connect into Daniel Baker, and we want the AD local admin this time. And again, we'll enter the credentials to make sure that we can connect. And again, that's now gone through. So you can see we're ready to configure. So once we click the install upgrade, it's going to do the following. It's going to install the synchronization engine and the connectors. It's going to enable password synchronization, automatic upgrade, and then it's going to configure the synchronization services on this computer. So I'm going to go ahead and say install, and it's now going through and configuring that. And what we'll see is when that's completed, that we should start seeing that we get Alex and Laura and Simon and Ian appear in our users and groups in our Active Directory portal. So we're going to pause the video, we're going to come back in a couple of moments, and we're going to see if that's the case. And we're back. We can see the configuration is complete. We can now log into our Azure or Office 365 portal to verify the user accounts exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down back into Internet Explorer, and we can see, look, it's already starting to populate in there. Now, if I come across to users and groups, if I come down to all users, you'll now be able to see, look, we've got Alex in there, we've got Ian in there, we've got Laura in there, we've got Simon in there, and they've all come across under the danielbaker.info domain. So that's all now synchronized. Everyone's come across. What we can do is we can test authentication. So if I go ahead and open up an in private browsing window and we move across to myapps.microsoft.com, what I should be able to do is I should now be able to authenticate using one of these new accounts. So if I log in as Simon at danielbaker.info, I should now be able to use his existing password. So let's try that. And we'll try signing in. So at that point, it's now taken us into our My Apps directory, and there's not going to be anything in there because we haven't added any applications yet. But you can see that account that was originally on the on-premise domain controller has now replicated across to our Azure Active Directory, and we're enabled us to invoke single sign-on to our application portal. So we'll come back in a little while. We're going to do a few more slides, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little bit more configuration with this. So now we've set up our connection to our backend directory. Let's look at some of the things that we can achieve with Azure AD. Many organizations rely upon software as a service applications such as Office 365, Box, and Salesforce for their end user productivity. Historically, IT staff have needed to individually create and update user accounts for each SaaS application, meaning that end users had to remember multiple passwords. Azure Active Directory extends on-premises Active Directory into the cloud, enabling users to use their primary organizational account to not only sign into their domain join devices and company resources, but also all of the web and SaaS applications needed for their job. What this means is not only do users not have to manage multiple sets of usernames and passwords, their application access can be automatically provisioned or deprovisioned based on their organizational group membership and status as an employee. When a user signs into an application, they go through an authentication process where they're required to prove that they are who they say they are. Without single sign-on, this is typically done by entering a password that is stored at the application. Azure AD supports 3 different ways to sign into applications. Firstly, we have federated single sign-on that enables applications to redirect to Azure AD for user authentication instead of prompting for its own password. This is supported for applications that support protocols such as SAML, WS Federation, or OpenID Connect, and is the richest mode of single sign-on. Next, we have password-based single sign-on that enables secure application password storage and replay using a web browser extension or mobile app. This leverages the existing sign-in processes provided by the application, but enables an administrator to manage the passwords without user intervention. Finally, you can choose existing single sign-on, which enables Azure AD to leverage any existing sign-ons that have been set up for the application, but enable these applications to be linked to the Office 365 or Azure AD Access portals. This enables additional reporting in Azure AD when the applications are launched. Let's take a look at this in practice. Okay, so I'm back in my portal, and what I want to do is under my Active Directory, I want to come down to app registrations. Now, From here, you see I've got nothing in there at the moment, so we're going to go ahead and add a simple app registration. So I'm going to call this OneDrive. It's going to be a web app / API. The sign-on URL is going to be https // OneDrive.live.com. So https OneDrive.live.com. So let's go ahead and create that. We can now see that's created. Now, if I go ahead and click on this, it takes us into the settings. Let's just move across. We can see the application ID, the object IDs. If I go into properties, I can change the name. I can go ahead and upload a logo. So I've downloaded a OneDrive logo that we can upload in there. I've got the homepage URL, logout URLs, and any error URLs that I might want to put in. From there, I'm going to hit save. And let's now come back and assign this to a user. So if we go back into Active Directory, this time I'm going to go to Enterprise Applications. Now, from here, we'll see that we've got one application in there. So I'm going to click on All Applications. And then from there, I'm going to click on OneDrive. Now, as we move over, you'll see that I've now got users and groups. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add a user in there. So I'm going to select my users and groups, and we'll just wait for this to load. So that'll take a second. So that should come up any second now. There we go. So I'm going to look for Daniel. And you can see we've got Daniel Baker in there. So I'm going to select that user. I'm going to hit assign. And again, that application has now been assigned to Daniel Baker on the live account. So what that means is if I open up a new tab, if I now go into myapps.microsoft.com, if I now click on that application, that will redirect me into my OneDrive account. We know that the key to success is to keep things simple. The more we can protect and empower our employees, the more productive they become. Azure Active Directory offers a number of additional benefits, from company branding to self-service password management, that can be utilized by IT in order to make the lives of our users easier. Let's take a look at these in more detail. Azure Multi-Factor Authentication helps safeguard access to data and applications while meeting user demand for a simple sign-in process. It delivers strong authentication via a range of verification methods, including phone call, text message, or even mobile app. The security of two-step verification lies in its layered approach. Comprising multiple verification methods presents a significant challenge for attackers. Even if an attacker manages to learn your password, it's useless without also having possession of the trusted device. Should you lose the device, the person who finds it can't use it unless he or she knows your password. On August the 15th, 2016, we released a new Microsoft Authenticator app in all mobile app stores. This app combines the best parts of our previous Authenticator apps into a new app which works with both Microsoft accounts and Azure AD accounts. Here are some of the new benefits. Firstly, a user experience refresh. We made the app experience incredibly simple while maintaining the highest level of security. On top of this, we have the best-in-breed MFA experience through one-click push notifications, meaning that you only need to click the approve button in the notification to complete your login. On top of that, we now have support for wearables, including the Apple Watch and the Samsung Gear devices. We have fingerprint-based approvals on both iPhone and Android. And finally, certificate-based authentication, allowing enterprise customers to sign in through certificates instead of passwords. Let's take a look at this in practice. Okay, so back into the portal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to users and groups. Then from there, I'm going to come down to all users. You'll notice across the top, we have a redirector to the multi-factor authentication page. So I'm going to click on that, and that will redirect us to account.activedirectory.windowsazure.com. Then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my accounts. Just do that again. Select my accounts. that I want to enable for multi-factor authentication. I'm going to go ahead and click Enable. And we'll just wait for that to update. That'll only take a second or two. We can see the updates have been successful. From there, I'm going to go in and select these accounts again. We're going to go into Manage User Settings, and I'm going to say require selected users to provide contact methods again. Delete all existing app passwords generated by the selected users, and restore multi-factor authentication on all remembered devices. So I'm going to go and enable those changes. Again, that'll take a moment or two, so that should be done any second now. We can see the updates are successful. And the last thing that I want to do then is I want to go ahead and select those accounts again, and I'm going to enforce multi-factor authentication. So what that will do is it will make sure that the next time I authenticate, I'll have to go in and configure it on my chosen authentication method. So let's close that down. And from there, let's go ahead and go into myapps.microsoft.com. Okay, so what we'll do is let's go ahead and click on my name. It's going to redirect. Now what we should see is after I sign in, we get prompted to enter additional information. You can see, look, for added security, we need to further verify your account. And it says the administrator is required that you set up this account for additional security verification. So let's go ahead and set that up now. And from there, it says, how should we contact you? And I can choose, do I want to use an authentication phone? Do I want to use an office phone? Or do I want to use the mobile app? So I'm going to choose to use the mobile app. And I'm going to go ahead and set that up now. So it's going to configure the mobile app. And you can see I've got a QR code that I need to scan in. So at this point, I'm going to jump into my mobile device. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch the Authenticator application, and I'm going to choose to add an account. Now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to add a work or school account, and I'm going to scan that QR code in. Now, that'll take a moment or two. We can see that I now have this account verified. So I'm going to come across to here and click Done. And what it will now do is check the activation status. So at some point, this is going to want me to go in and authenticate back into Azure Active Directory. So we can see, contact me. It's now going to contact my phone. We're going to approve that sign-in. And we can see that that's now approved. So we'll minimize that down. We can see that the verification has been successful. Now at this point, I need to enter my phone number. So I'm going to click Done. And you can now see that we're taken into our My Apps directory. Okay, so I've paused the video and I've turned off multi-factor authentication because it's not very good when you're recording. What we are going to do is we're going to go back into users and groups, and what we're now going to look at is company branding. So if I come down into company branding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and edit the company branding, and you can start to see what you can put in there. So I've pre-created some images prior to recording, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a sign-in page. We're going to put a banner in there. We're going to put a logo image in there. So if I go ahead and click on the files, I've got my sign-in page. I've got my banner image, and I've got my square logo. So if I come down to my logos, you can see that I can put those in. Got a couple of options in there as well. Do I want to have a username hint? Do I want sign-in page text? So I might say, welcome to Cloud and Proud. And from there, I've got post sign out link label. So I might say, don't forget to visit the site. And from there, I can go ahead and put in the URL. So http://www cloudandproud.info. And again, I can go in, change the background color and stuff like that too. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and we'll allow those updates to take hold. So that'll take a moment or two. So while that configures, what we'll do is we'll jump into our Windows 10 machine, and I've opened up an incognito window in Chrome. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as Simon at danielbaker.info, and what we should see is we should now see these customizations take place. So if I hit continue, you can see that I've got my side art, I've got my banner in there, I've got my welcome to Cloud and Proud. If I now go in there and authenticate, and we hit sign in, you'll see that I should have my banner at the top, and again, any applications and things that I had assigned to me. So let's now change focus and look at Azure Active Directory Join for Windows 10. Now, Windows Server Active Directory is the most widely used corporate directory deployed by over 90% of enterprises in the world. In the last 15 plus years, the main join has connected millions of computers to Active Directory for secure single sign-on access to applications and centralized device management via group policy. Azure AD builds on this and opens up new opportunities for connected devices running Windows 10. If you are moving your organization to the cloud and using software as a service applications like Office 365, you should consider Azure AD Join. By doing this, employees can join Windows 10 devices to Azure AD either during the first run experience after setup or from the system settings pane. Once done, they have single sign-on access to all applications that use Azure AD for authentication, including the Azure AD Access panel at myapps.microsoft.com. What's more, administrators are able to take advantage of automatic MDM enrollment and conditional access even on users' personal machines when joined to the directory. Let's take a look at this in practice. Okay, so I've just created a brand new Windows 10 machine in Azure. So what we're now going to do is we're going to look for a work or school account. So you can see connect to work or school. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to connect, and we're going to authenticate into danielbaker.info as Simon. So let's log on as Simon at danielbaker.info. When I click next, if this works, we should see our little icon, so we can see that's there. We just need to put in Simon's password. And if we click sign in, that machine should now go ahead and begin registering with our Active Directory. And you can see we're all set. It's now added into Azure AD. So there we go, work and school account, Simon at danielbaker.info. So now the device has been registered in Azure Active Directory, Simon will be able to enjoy a single sign-on to applications that have been granted to him. This includes bespoke enterprise apps in addition to common software as a service applications such as Office 365. One of the great things about the cloud-based authentication and identity services of Azure is the ability to take advantage of its massive hyperscale ecosystem. Over the next few slides, we will discuss some of the opportunities and configurations that can be done in order to streamline the identity management of both partners and consumers. Azure Active Directory business-to-business collaboration enables simple and secure sharing of data and applications between partners by using an invitation model regardless of the partner's current infrastructure. It reduces complexity by enabling companies to federate once with Azure AD and then use secure and granular control over the applications they can access. Even if the partner company is not running in a Microsoft directory, they are able to access resources due to the invitation model providing them with a simple user sign-up experience for immediate access to your apps. To allow external users to access your applications, you'll need to provide email addresses together with the application ID for every application for which you wish to share. So let's take a quick look at setting this up. Okay, so a couple of ways that we can invite an external user in. So first thing I've done is I've gone ahead and I've created a brand new account for Mark Crump. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Mark into my directory, and there's a couple of ways that we can do this. So the first way, in the new portal under the preview features, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my users and groups. And from there, I'm going to come down to all users. And then from there, I'm going to choose to add. And what I want to do is I want to add Mark Crumpin. And I'm going to put in his email address. So mark_crump@outlook.com. Okay. And from there, it's going to say Mark Crump will be added as a guest. So include a personal message. And from there, I can go in and I can put in a profile for him. I can enter any additional properties in there. So source of authority is going to be Azure Active Directory. And again, I can choose to add into some groups if I want to. So I'm going to leave it as is. And I'm going to go ahead and create. Okay, so it's now going to invite the user. We'll just wait for that to go through. And then what we should see is Mark Crump should get an email from my directory. So let's see what happens. You can see we've got Microsoft invitation. So danielbaker.info has invited you to use their apps. So if I click on there, let's just expand that a little bit. So, hi Mark, welcome to my directory. Use this link to access the applications the first time. So again, Mark then clicks on there. He'll be taken through to my directory. And then from there, it's going to sign him in to the portal. So the second way that this could be done is to go into the ASM portal. Now from the ASM portal, I've drilled down into danielbaker.info. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and add a user. Now under the type of user, I'm going to drop down and I'm going to say a user in a partner company. Now you see what it's looking for is a CSV file. So I've gone ahead and created a CSV file. So very simple, the email address, the display name, and then from there I could put some invites in for application IDs and app resources and group resources and a contact URL in there. So very simple CSV file. If I click on the CSV file, I can then upload that into the directory. And what that will now do is it will now put Mark in as a new user. Azure AD Business to Consumer provides identity as a service for your applications by supporting two industry standard protocols. This is OpenID Connect and OAuth version 2. It eliminates the requirements for developers to write a code for identity management and allows consumers to sign up for your applications by using their social media accounts such as Facebook, Google, or LinkedIn. Applications that are integrated with Azure AD B2C need to be registered in your B2C directory. During registration, each application gets a unique application ID and package identifier. Once done, you'll then define the policies which state the consumer identity experiences such as sign up, sign in, or profile editing. So as we move into our last section of this session, I want to change focus and look at some of the advanced protection mechanisms offered by the Microsoft Cloud. In a mobile-first, cloud-first world, the enterprise security management landscape is ever-changing. Because of this, it's important that we meet these challenges head-on with an identity-driven approach and the latest security technologies for users, devices, apps, and data. As we've discussed, the Microsoft Cloud addresses these issues by providing a common identity that utilizes single sign-on with multi-factor authentication and risk-based conditional access. What's more, we're able to gain deeper visibility for our cloud apps and control data with fine-grained policies, whilst enabling secure internal and external file sharing with classification and usage tracking. On top of this, we can identify advanced persistent threats by using behavioral analytics, which help detect suspicious user or entity behavior, as well as draw on the vast threat intelligence and security-related data from Microsoft's Cyber Channel. The vast majority of security breaches take place when attackers gain access to an environment by stealing the user's identity. Attackers have become increasingly effective at leveraging third-party breaches and using sophisticated phishing attacks. Once an attacker gains access to even a low privilege user account, it's relatively straightforward for them to gain access to important company resources through lateral movement. It's therefore essential to protect all identities and, when compromised, proactively prevent the compromised identity from being abused. Discovering compromised identities are no easy task. Fortunately, identity protection can help. Now, identity protection provides you with a consolidated view into risk events and potential vulnerabilities affecting your organization's identities. It uses adaptive machine learning algorithms and heuristics to detect anomalies and risk events that may indicate that an identity has been compromised. Using this data, identity protection generates reports and alerts that enables you to investigate these risk events and take appropriate remediation or mitigation actions. But Azure Active Directory Identity Protection is more than just a monitoring and reporting tool. Based on risk events, identity protection calculates a user risk level for each user, enabling you to configure risk-based policies to automatically protect the identities of your organization. These risk-based policies, in addition to other conditional access controls provided by Azure Active Directory and EMS, can automatically block and offer adaptive remediation actions that include password resets and multi-factor authentication enforcement. To help understand, let's break this down into three core levels: detection, investigation, and remediation. During detection, risk events will be flagged as suspicious when identity protection deems that an identity may have been compromised. This event will be categorized by a risk level of high, medium, or low. The risk level helps identity protection users prioritize the actions they must take to reduce the risk of their organization. The severity of the risk event represents the strength of the signal as a predictor of an identity compromise, combined with the amount of noise that it typically introduces. Investigation is typically undertook through the Identity Protection Dashboard, which will give you access to reports such as users flagged for risk events and vulnerabilities, as well as settings such as the configuration of your security policies, notifications, and multi-factor authentication registrations. Finally, you can remediate the event, which restores the identity or device to a safe state by either performing a secure password reset, configuring a security policy, or re-imaging the infected device. So let's jump into the portal and take a look at this in action. So let's go up to More Services, and if we click on that, under Security and Identity, what we want to do is we want to link Azure AD Identity Protection. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that. From there, I'm going to click on the link, and that will open up a new blade. Now, you can see as we go in now, not a lot's going to be happening. This is a demo account. There's not that much activity or users in there, but I can go in and see any users flagged for risk and any risk events. The other thing I can do as well is I can go in there and I can enable cloud up discovery for any of my applications for monitoring about compromised events. If I come down to getting started, we can see what Azure AD Identity Protection can do. So we can discover users flagged for risk, discover risk events, vulnerabilities, and then we can mitigate and remediate. From there, we then have three sections: investigate, configure, and settings. So let's have a look at investigate. Now, if I go into users flagged for risk, you can see there's nothing in there at the moment, but what it will invite us to do is to set some risk policies. So if I go into a risk policy for mitigation, if I come down, I can select the users. Is it all users, individual users and groups? Do I want to exclude anyone? And then from there, I can choose the conditions. So under the user risk level, I can say, well, is it low and above? Is it medium and above? Is it high? And once I've done that, I can come down to access control. So I might say, well, we'll block access, we're going to allow access, but we're going to require a password change, or we're going to require multi-factor authentication. Now, if I come down to estimated impact, it's going to show me a visual graph of any users that are potentially affected by this. If we come down to risk events, it's going to show us risk events over the last X amount of days. If I come down into vulnerabilities, you can see that it's already picked it up and said, look, we've got some users here without multi-factor authentication registration. Now, if I go ahead and click on that, it's going to come up with the settings. Again, from there, I can go in and choose the users. I can choose the access control. And from there, I've got the option to choose whether or not I want to save this policy. If we come down to configure, we've got multi-factor authentication registrations. We've got user risk policies. So again, I can come down there, I can select the conditions. I can select my access and the estimated number of users impacted. We've got sign-in risk policies that we can choose. And then from there, we've got alerts. We've got our weekly digest and the option to pin that onto our dashboard. Organizations want to minimize the number of people who have access to secure information or resources. The more people who have access means the more porous your security and the greater risk of malicious users gaining access. Now, for as long as I've been in IT, we've followed the principle of least privilege when it came to security practices, ensuring that users only ever had the right permissions and privileges to perform the task that needed and nothing more. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management helps identify and resolve security risks by helping you see which users are Azure AD administrators, enable on-demand, just-in-time administrative access to Microsoft Online services such as Office 365 and Intune, get reports about administrator access history and changes in administrator assignments, and finally get alerts about access to privileged roles. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management can manage the built-in Azure AD organizational roles, including the Global Administrator, Billing Administrator, Service Administrator, User Administrators, and Password Administrators. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management introduces the concept of an eligible admin. Now, eligible admins should be users that need privilege access now and then, but not every day. The role is inactive until the end user needs access, and then they complete an activation process to become an active admin for a predetermined amount of time. Now, this brings a number of obvious benefits. Firstly, it reduces exposures to attacks that are targeted towards administrative accounts by removing unneeded privileged identities, as well as limiting the time that a user token has administrative rights and enforcing multi-factor authentication. On top of this, it simplifies delegation by separating role administration from other tasks and adding roles for read-only views. What's more, it audits privileged use and asks users to review and justify their elevated roles. Finally, privileged identity management increases visibility and fine-grained control by enabling least privileged role assignments and simplifying reporting on administrative activities. So let's take a quick look at this in practice. Okay, so back into the portal. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to come up to Azure Active Directory. Now, from here, I'm going to go into my users and groups, and I'm going to go ahead and select all users, and from there, I'm going to pick Simon Pearson. Now, from here, what I want to do is I want to come down to his directory role, and we can see that at the moment, he's a user. So I'm going to go ahead and promote Simon to a global administrator and hit save. So we can see that that's now been updated. And from there, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go into more services, and under security identity, I'm going to go into Azure AD Privileged Identity Management. So let's pin that to the board again. And then from there, let's click on Azure AD Privileged Identity Management. And we're going to go in and we're going to discover privileged roles. So from here, we just do a refresh, we can see that we've now got 3 global administrators. So there's AD Admin, there's Daniel Baker, and there's Simon Pearson. So that's fine. So let's say next. Now, what we want to do is we want to convert users to be eligible. Okay, so reducing the number of users in your organization who have permanent privileged role assignments will minimize your vulnerability to security breaches. So I'm going to go ahead and select Simon Pearson. Now, from there, I'm going to say next. And we can see that, look, Simon Pearson will be changed to eligible. So from there, I'm going to say OK. And we can see that it's now setting up Azure AD Privileged Identity Management for Simon's account. So that's now done. And we can go ahead and test this. Okay, so I've opened up an incognito window and we're going to authenticate as Simon. So from here, let's enter his credentials. And go ahead and sign in. So it's going to go into multi-factor authentication. So I just need to go in and verify this. So we've now done that. it's now going to take us into the dashboard. Now, at this point, what we're going to try and do is we're going to come down to Azure Active Directory. And from here, I'm going to go into users and groups. And what I want to do is I want to try and add a new user. And look, even though Simon is a global administrator, you can see that he's unable to do it. He's got restricted permissions. So what Simon now needs to do is he's going to need to come down into more services. He's going to need to scroll down to identity and management, so security and identity. And from there, he's going to go into Azure AD privileged identity management. So if we click on there, it's now going to change focus and it's going to invite him to activate the role. So he wants to become a global administrator for a predetermined amount of time. So let's click on global administrator and we can see name Simon Pearson. We've got the email in there, activation he's eligible, and there's an expiration in there too that we could set up. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit activate. The reason for activation, I would like to create a new user account. And from there, we're going to go ahead and say OK. So that's now being activated. We'll just wait for that to update. That shouldn't take too long. We can see that the activate role was succeeded. So he's now been activated as the global administrator. So from here, let's go ahead and go back into Azure Active Directory. Now at this point, when I go into users and groups and I click on all users, you can see that I've got the option to now go ahead and add a new user in there. So back into my main screen, if I now go back into Azure AD privileged identity, again, I've got the option to go in there, review any privileged access. I've got the option to manage privileged roles. So from here, you can see that again, I've got my different levels in there. I've got some roles being assigned outside of privileged identity management. So if I click on there, it will give me a breakdown of what's going on. Okay, and we can see that one privileged activations were detected for an infinitive time window and possibly outside the recommended interfaces of Azure PIM. And again, the only reason that was flagging is because we hadn't set up a time window. Now, if I go into my audit history, you can see that I'm going to get a breakdown of what's gone on. You can see that I can go through, I can look at my different times and when people were active. I've also got the option to go back in and activate any new roles if need be. So in our final slides, I want to quickly talk about two more technologies, Advanced Threat Analytics and Cloud App Security. Now, Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics allows you to detect known malicious attacks and abnormal activity by utilizing the power of machine learning and behavioral analytics. There are many benefits to adopting this technology, which include the quick detection of threats from behavioral analytics proprietary algorithms that work around the clock to help you pinpoint suspicious activities in your system, as well as continually learning from the behavior of users, devices, and resources. What's more, the technology allows you to zero in on the right alerts, saving administrators from the often overwhelming job of sifting through a number of security tools to locate and remediate relevant alerts. The attack timeline is a clear, efficient, and convenient feed that surfaces the right things, giving you the power of perspective on the who, what, where, and how. Advanced Threat Analytics also provides recommendations for investigation and remediation for each suspicious activity. What's more, suspicious activities are contextually aggregated with other behaviors in the interaction path to give you clear, accurate alerts. Cloud App Security is a comprehensive cloud-delivered service built for IT and security teams to help combat one of the top security concerns today. How can we gain deeper visibility, stronger controls, and enhanced protection for cloud apps? The solution provides a set of capabilities to help companies design and enforce a process for securing cloud usage. This ranges from discovery and investigation capabilities to granular control and protection. It's easy to deploy, set up and use, and provides out-of-the-box value immediately. But why do we need it? Cloud applications are in use by most enterprises today. Soon we will reach the time where more corporate data will be stored in the cloud than on premises. Moreover, everyone is using the cloud, and even companies without official SaaS applications have substantial shadow IT usage using cloud resources. We also know from past customer surveys that over 80% of employees have admitted to using unapproved SaaS applications for corporate usage. For security teams, it's important to have deep visibility, strong controls, and threat protection for cloud apps. This is why we created Cloud App Security, to provide you with an easy and comprehensive solution so you can gain visibility into your cloud app usage and start controlling it via policy. Let's take a look at what you get with Cloud App Security. Firstly, app discovery. Cloud App Security identifies all cloud applications in your network from all devices. It provides risk scoring and ongoing risk assessment through analytics. Secondly, we have data control. With special focus on sanctioned apps, you can set granular controls and policies for data sharing and loss prevention, leveraging API-based integration. Finally, we have threat protection. Cloud App Security provides threat protection for your cloud applications, leveraging user behavioral analytics and anomaly detection. So there you have it, Azure Active Directory and a selection of its advanced workloads. Now this has been a long session and we have covered many topics. While I hope that you have found it useful, I would encourage you to go off and look at some of these sections in more detail. Until then, I thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you on my next Cloud and Proud session.